The boardroom was silent except for the ticking clock. Marcus Hale, a self-made millionaire CEO, stood by the window overlooking the city he ruled. Every inch of him looked like success. Tailored suit, calm face, confident stance, but his heart carried an old wound he never talked about. 5 years ago, he had said words that shattered someone who once loved him deeply. "You ruined my life with this pregnancy." He had shouted it without thinking, blinded by ambition and fear. That night had changed everything. Far away from his world of glass towers and flashing headlines, Emma Cole had carried those words like a scar. She left the city with nothing but courage and the life growing inside her. Marcus had convinced himself it was for the best. He told himself love was a weakness, but every time he looked out at the skyline at night, he felt something missing, something no money could replace. Now, as the company prepared for a new charity partnership, his assistant mentioned a guest speaker, an education worker from a small coastal town. "Emma Cole," she said. The name hit him like lightning. He froze. His pulse quickened, and for the first time in years his perfect composure cracked. He told himself it could not be her, yet his chest burned with the memory of her eyes. The air felt heavy, almost warning him. Marcus straightened his tie and whispered under his breath, "After all this time, why now?" He did not know it yet, but fate had already started rewriting his story. Emma's hands trembled as she reviewed the final notes for her presentation. 5 years had passed since she walked out of Marcus's life, yet the memory of his voice still echoed in her mind. "You ruined my life." Those words had once crushed her, but now, standing backstage at a charity event hosted by his company, she realized how far she had come. She had built her life again, slowly, painfully, but with pride. She wasn't the broken woman he left behind. She was stronger, wiser, and no longer afraid of him. When her name was announced, she took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The lights were blinding, and for a heartbeat, the world went still. Marcus looked up from his seat in the front row. The air between them shifted like the moment before a storm. Their eyes met for the first time in years. She saw shock in his gaze and something else, something softer he tried to hide. Emma began to speak about education, resilience, and giving children hope when life turns cruel. Her voice didn't shake once. Marcus sat frozen, his chest tightening with every word. He remembered the woman he once pushed away, and now she stood there, calm, graceful, unbroken. When she mentioned single mothers who raise their children alone, his stomach dropped. For a fleeting moment he thought he saw his own reflection in the child's photograph behind her on the screen. The same blue eyes, his eyes. His pulse thundered in his ears. He leaned forward, breath caught. Could it be? The truth he had buried so deep was about to return. And this time he couldn't run from it. Marcus couldn't stop staring at the photograph on the screen. The little girl had the same ocean blue eyes that once looked back at him in the mirror every morning. His heartbeat quickened, as if his body already knew what his mind refused to accept. He tried to shake off the thought, convincing himself it was a coincidence. But the moment Emma finished her speech and left the stage, he knew he had to speak to her. He waited until the crowd thinned, standing near the hallway where the guests exited. Every second stretched like an eternity. Then she appeared, calm, confident, holding a folder close to her chest. When she saw him, her steps faltered. Time folded back on itself. 5 years of silence stood between them, filled with everything they never said. Marcus finally spoke, his voice quieter than he expected. "Emma, that was an incredible speech." She nodded politely, keeping her distance. "Thank you, Mr. Hale." The title stung more than any insult could. He searched her face, but she had built walls he couldn't see through. "That child in your presentation," he started, his words trembling slightly. "Is she—" Emma cut him off softly. "This isn't the place, Marcus." Her tone wasn't angry. It was tired, resolute. She turned to leave, but he stepped forward, guilt pressing heavy in his chest. "I need to know." For a long moment she said nothing. Then she looked at him, eyes filled with both strength and sorrow. "You already do," she whispered before walking away. The truth settled like thunder inside him. Marcus stood there, breathless, realizing that the life he once rejected was still out there, breathing, growing, and carrying his name in her eyes. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. The city outside his penthouse window glittered with life, but his heart felt hollow. Every success, every award, every deal, none of it mattered now. His mind was full of questions he had no courage to ask. He replayed Emma's words again and again. "You already do." The weight of that truth pressed on his chest until he could barely breathe. He had built empires, but lost the only thing that had ever truly belonged to him. For the first time in years, he left his office early, got into his car, and drove without knowing where he was going. Hours later, he found himself parked near a small coastal town, the name on the welcome sign blurred by tears he hadn't realized he was holding back. He remembered Emma once mentioning this place, a quiet town by the sea. His heart pounded as he walked down the narrow streets, the scent of salt and rain in the air. He spotted a small bookstore near the pier, its window filled with children's books and seashells. Through the glass, he saw her. Emma was sitting behind the counter, her hair tied back, smiling softly at a little girl standing beside her. The child turned, laughing, and his world stopped. Those eyes, his eyes, shone with life and innocence. Marcus stepped closer, unable to move or speak. The glass between them felt like a wall made of all his past mistakes. Emma looked up and froze. Their eyes met, and the years between them disappeared. The little girl tugged Emma's sleeve. "Mama, who's that man?" she asked, her voice bright and curious. Emma hesitated, her lips trembling. "Someone from a story," she whispered. Marcus stood outside, his heart breaking and healing all at once, realizing that story was his own. Marcus stood frozen outside the glass, his reflection overlapping with the little girl's bright smile. The sight stirred something deep within him, a strange blend of joy, regret, and longing. He had spent years mastering control, but now every breath felt like it carried a lifetime of mistakes. When Emma noticed him still standing there, she quietly walked outside, leaving the child inside the store. The sea wind played with her hair, and for a moment they just looked at each other, both unsure where to begin. "I didn't want to disturb your life," Marcus said finally, his voice breaking the silence. "I just needed to see her." Emma folded her arms, not with anger, but with protection. "You saw what you needed to. Please go back to your world, Marcus. We're doing fine without you." Her words cut gently, not meant to wound, but to remind him of the choice he once made. He took a hesitant step forward. "She deserves to know who I am." Emma's gaze softened, but pain lingered in her eyes. "And where were you when she needed lullabies?" "When I needed help paying rent or finding hope?" Her voice wavered, but she didn't cry. "You can't walk back into her life just because you're ready now." Marcus lowered his head, ashamed. "You're right," he whispered. "But I want to do better. Not for me, for her." Emma studied him for a long moment. "Then prove it," she said quietly. "Not with money. With presence." She turned and walked back inside, leaving him standing in the fading sunlight. For the first time in his life, Marcus realized that redemption doesn't come from power. It comes from patience, humility and love you're finally brave enough to give. Days turned into weeks, and Marcus kept returning to that small coastal town. Never uninvited, never forceful, just present. At first, Emma barely acknowledged him. But the townspeople began to notice the tall man who spent his mornings helping at the bakery below her apartment or reading children's books at the pier. He didn't talk about his company or his wealth. He simply listened, learning about a world that didn't run on ambition, but on kindness. For the first time, Marcus felt human again. One rainy afternoon, as he was stacking boxes in the bookstore, the door opened, and a small voice called out, "Mama, he's here again." The little girl smiled up at him, her blue eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Are you my friend?" she asked softly. The question pierced his heart in the gentlest way. "I'd like to be," Marcus said with a trembling smile. Emma stood nearby, silent but watching. For the first time in years, she didn't feel anger, only quiet understanding. Over the following months, Marcus became part of their small circle. He walked Lily to school, helped her with homework, and learned to find peace in simplicity. The walls Emma built slowly began to crack, replaced by something fragile yet hopeful. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the sea, Emma found Marcus sitting on the bench outside the shop, Lily asleep on his shoulder. He looked up, exhaustion and peace blended in his eyes. "You were right," he whispered. "Love isn't a weakness. It's the only thing that kept me alive." She smiled faintly, her voice soft as the tide. "Then don't waste it again." That night, for the first time in years, the city lights in his memory dimmed, replaced by the quiet glow of home. A home he thought he had lost forever, but had finally earned through grace and time.